I do. Because it just did something weird. I'm back though. I'm back. But if it happens again, I got stuff to do today now. Stop playing with me. Okay. So thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. I was just live. The stream, it said try again. Then it said in the stream, I just ended it. But normally I can hit try again, but it might just be um how stream is acting. So I don't know. I mean, at one point I said, should I go back to the other streams? And if it keeps acting up, I might just have to do that. So come on in, like the video, subscribe channel. Have to find my I can do my disclaimer. You know, I got to do what I got to do. But come on in, like the video. Yeah, it takes me a minute. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, it takes me a minute to redo it. So it's not easy coming back. I got things to do. And it's going to be fun today, too. So I was kind of like, dang. Y'all just going to get in the, just get in the car and leave. But I knew Paris would be like, where's she at? What's going on? It might be the tablet. Because it shouldn't have been, though. I can normally tell if it's buffering on my side. I have to cut it off, cut it back on. But it didn't do that. So it kind of gave me no warning. And then I was up. I did a lot of shorts this morning. Did you see all those shorts I did 5 or 6 o'clock this morning? Just getting them out of the way. Because I know I can't do my shorts after I'm done with the live. So, yeah. Yeah, tablet. And then the other tablet, I don't know why I don't like the other tablet. I have a backup though. So don't, it is what it is. Technology. It comes and goes. It gives you a good time, then it gives you a hard time. But okay, so now I got to do this again. And I don't think it was a comment because I was careful about the comments I made, but it's all good. Oh, this all over again. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is use permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. It's so funny because when I wasn't live for those 2 months, I was wondering if I was going to remember the copyright disclaimer, but I did. I remembered. So it's all good. We're going to get back to the video, and it might have been, I don't know what it is, but it's all good. Technology, stuff happens. I'm just glad I'm back. Yeah, you guys, we had almost, what did it say? 2,000 people in just in that stream for that 20 minutes. So guys, you got to hit the like. You got to hit the like. You got to hit subscribe. We had almost 2,000 people in that video just for those 20 minutes. 3,000. So hit the like, stop playing. And subscribe. Okay, so I got to reiterate because a lot of people don't know. They're like, what's going on? The video blinked out. So yesterday we were talking about that there was a lot of people at the courthouse, a lot of drama, a lot of conflict. People are ready to get a verdict. No verdict yesterday. It was a very busy morning. Wasn't that busy of a morning today. I'm doing stuff behind the scenes. So it wasn't that busy, but of course busy. People are in line trying to get into the courtroom, reporters, everybody. A lot of public was out yesterday. And people may come later because they're stating that a lot of people were there late yesterday thinking that there was going to be a verdict. Those jurors got the jurors' instructions from the judge. They're stating that he spent a lot of time with them. And then not even 3-4 hours into it, there was notes passed to the judge. And allegedly there's a person that doesn't want to follow the instructions. Now, whether he's swaying one way or another, many people don't know. But we had said, let's keep an eye on what the jurors are asking, requesting, and that way we'll kind of know where they're leaning. But it's interesting that they had concerns with one of the jurors. And it is up to the alleged discretion by the judge if they want to keep or remove. Mind you, there's other backup jurors. We don't know if he's for or against, but either way, more distractions. More distractions. Yeah, so bad. It's interesting. And like I said, he's innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. We can't confirm or deny what's going to happen, what's going to transpire. We just know that he's been in jail for a long time and people testified. And like I mentioned, this is what I was saying. Many people felt that maybe that's why they called the assistants, because they were the ones that was doing the setup and the cleanup. Even though we wanted to hear from the bodyguard, people that work with him day to day. Okay, how was he like day to day? No witnesses were called, but the assistants, they had to tell what they experienced. So it kind of gave us an understanding how he treated his girlfriends or lady friends or partners, whatever you want to call them, and how he treated the assistants. So that in itself is a concern. That in itself is a concern. Yeah, and they focus a lot on the oils and that kind of stuff, but why would you want your girl sleeping with different people hours on end and days on end? Okay. So, like the videos, you guys come in. I appreciate you guys being here. And then this was a question that I asked. Do you think he's guilty? Not guilty? Do you think it'll be a mistrial? The other question I had asked, do you think you could have been one of the jurors? Do you think he's guilty? 1. Not guilty? 2. Do you think it'll be a mistrial? 3. And do you think that you could have handled being a juror? 4. So let's go ahead and get to some clips. Be kind in the comments. YouTube will block your comments. I don't even really have to do anything. Be kind in the comments, please. And thank you. Let's continue fair use reaction clip. And it's going to take a minute for people to come in. We had some pretty decent numbers a minute ago. So just give it time. People will come in. But let's get
they're getting pretty in there.
Video.
On day 1. Obviously, they
fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in. Subscribe to the page as you guys come in.
Back with a note that says that they are ready to leave at 5 p.m. today. So unfortunately, they didn't go past 5 o'clock or anything like that. They're not still continuing on with their deliberations, but they will start bright and early again tomorrow morning. But it's interesting, Jesse, because already they've had some pretty interesting questions for the judge as to what their jury instructions and their the jury charges.
Let's talk about that. There were, I think, 3 notes. There was 1 note and then there was 2 notes at the end. Let's start with the first note. Happened shortly after they went back to deliberate. What was that note about?
Yeah, well, the first note right off the top was a simple note, or at least I think it was a simple note. It was that the jury had decided who their foreperson is going to be, and that was juror number 5. Now, a lot of us had a couple questions in terms of if it's juror number 5 going back to voir dire and that juror number that was assigned to them then, or does it have to correlate with their seat numbers? But I think we kind of all figured it out. It was kind of going back to the voir dire process. So what we know about juror number 5 is, who again is the foreperson, he's a religious man. He is an investment analyst. He's a Connecticut Country Club member, and so he's going to be the one taking charge. And I think once the jury comes to their decision, he'll be reading that note out loud in front of the court, in front of a lot of people who are anticipating that verdict too.
Thanks, Pierce.
And then we got the controversial note, the big note everybody was talking about, again, relatively early on in the deliberation process.
Yeah, pretty early on. It came about 1:30 p.m. That's when the judge had read the note out loud. I think the actual message of the note came back probably maybe 20 or so minutes, or close to an hour beforehand, actually. That it was had to kind of pertain to juror number 25. And so this particular note was that juror number 25 can't follow instructions, and those instructions being the judge's instructions. And so initially the court was proposing to write back, okay, please explain the nature of your concern. Is it a lack of understanding? Is it unwillingness to follow the instructions? But even as it pertains to juror number 25, what we do know about this particular juror, he's 51 years old, he's a man, and he is a scientist, again, going back to voir dire, learning a little bit about these jurors and knowing a little bit about their background. So that's what we've learned of him. So initially the defense was like, okay, we're a little hesitant to lay out just all the different possibilities, just ask them to kind of work through everything. They're still early in their deliberations. They still have a lot of time to consider. So that was the defense's initial and proposed instruction, whereas the government was like, okay, I think we should be a little more specific. They wanted to review some of the cases or the case laws too. And so their proposal was, I received your note. I remind every juror to remember my instructions. Please make sure that the note doesn't reveal which way the jury is leaning. So then they kind of took a little bit of time, worked out their issues. They're going to come back to a decision at the end of it. So the judge ended up kind of making his own decision in terms of the proposed note to go back to the juror. And it was pretty much a neutral way that kind of, I think, appeased maybe both parties, or maybe not so much the defense as it did the government, but it was a way to kind of neutralize everything. And then for a while, Jesse, we didn't have a note for a few hours. And so then towards the end of the day, we got that one of the final notes from the jury.
Hey, so I know you guys might be into true crime, but a little side note, anybody out there also in a business of some kind? If so, let me tell you real quick about Odoo, our sponsor. Why? Odoo is a powerful all-in.
Do you know if you drive less than 50 miles per day, you are now eligible?
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. And we don't know if that person is purposely distracting the courts, but he sounds educated enough where he can make a decision and understand them, the instructions. Let me see. Wait a minute. Yeah, it sounds like he can fully understand what's happening, but does he not want to understand? He sounds intelligent enough. Fair use reaction clip.
They are ready to leave at 5 p.m. today. So unfortunately, they didn't go past 5 o'clock or anything like that. They're not still continuing on with their deliberations, but they will start bright and early again tomorrow morning. But it's interesting, Jesse, because already they've having some pretty interesting questions for the judge as to what their jury instructions and their the jury charges.
Let's talk about that. There were, I think, 3 notes. There was 1 note, and then there was 2 notes at the end. Let's start with the first note. Happened shortly after they went back to deliberate. What was that note about?
Yeah, well, the first note right off the top was a simple note, or at least I think it was a simple note. It was that the jury had decided who their foreperson is going to be, and that was juror number 5. Now, a lot of us had a couple questions in terms of if it's juror number 5 going back to voir dire, and that juror number that was assigned to him then, or does it have to correlate with their seat numbers? But I think we kind of all figured it out. It was kind of going back to the voir dire process. So what we know about juror number 5 is, who again is the foreperson, who's a religious man. He is.
You've known me long enough. I be side-eyeing everything because of the distractions. You know what I'm saying? After, the trial, who's to say, hey, hello, did you notice how I tried to distract for you? You never know people's intentions. Real talk. I be around some good people, so I don't want to try to think I'm side-eyeing my people around me. I be around some great people. We just laugh at situations we see that's questionable. You get what I'm saying? I got smarts, other smarts, and street smarts. I had to, because, I'm a little cute over here and I had to be understanding. So I had a lot of girlfriends, had a lot of guy friends. I get along with a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? But they would school me on what was being said and how it was being said. And he's trying to work you, girl. So we're still that great group of people. We still realize stuff and notice stuff. And, you got to be aware of your surroundings. So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Investment analyst. He's a Connecticut Country Club member, and so he's going to be the one taking charge. And I think once the jury comes to their decision, he'll be reading that note out loud in front of the court, in front of a lot of people who are anticipating that verdict too.
Oh, that's right. And then we got the controversial note, the big note everybody was talking about, again, relatively early on in the deliberation process.
Yeah, pretty early on. It came about 1:30 p.m. That's when the judge had read the note out loud. I think the actual message of the note came back probably maybe 20 or so minutes, or close to an hour beforehand, actually, that it had to kind of pertain to juror number 25. And so this particular note was that juror number 25 can't follow instructions, and those instructions being the judge's instructions. And so initially the court was proposing to write back, okay, please explain the nature of your concern. Is it a lack of understanding? Is it unwillingness to follow the instructions? But even as it pertains to juror number 25, what we do know about this particular juror, he's 51 years old, he's a man, and he is a scientist, again, going back to voir dire, learning a little bit about these jurors and knowing a little bit about their background. So that's what we've learned of him. So initially the defense was like, okay, we're a little hesitant to lay out just all the different possibilities. Just ask them to kind of work through everything. They're still early in their deliberations. They still have a lot of time to consider. So that was the defense's initial and proposed instruction. Whereas the government was like, okay, I think we should be a little more specific. They wanted to review some of the cases or the case laws too. And so their proposal was, I received your note. I remind every juror to remember my instructions. Please make sure that the note doesn't reveal which way the jury is leaning. So then they kind of took a little bit of time, worked out their issues. They're going to come back.
Yeah, which way the juror is leaning, because there's transcripts, they're still being put out. So if they slip up and say anything, people will know which way things are swaying. Like I said, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Let me know in the comments, do you feel he's guilty, not guilty, or will this be a mistrial? And do you think you could have handled being a juror? Be kind in the comments, you guys, because YouTube is blocking your comments, not me. And or it could be other people that's seeing y'all making weird comments and they're blocking you. So be kind. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
To a decision at the end of it, so the judge ended up kind of making his own decision in terms of the proposed note to go back to the juror, and it was pretty much a neutral way that kind of, I think, appeased maybe both parties, or maybe not so much the defense as it did the government, but it was a way to kind of neutralize everything. And then for a while, Jesse, we didn't have a note for a few hours, and so then towards the end of the day, we got that one of the final notes from the jury.
Hey, so I know you guys might be into true crime, but a little side note, anybody out there also in a bit?
And see, that buffering kind of made my stream go a little. You got to be careful when you delete. I'm noticing that, but it's all good. It's interesting. They want you to go live on the weekends. YouTube be wanting you to do a lot. Back in the day, and it's because a lot of people are live too, but we would have an average of almost 1,200, 1,500. So it's slower because there's a lot of people covering the case. But when we were doing those smaller lawsuits, we'd have 1,200, 1,500. We get like 2,000 subscribers in a day. So it's all good. It's all good. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
One of the final notes from the jury.
Hey, so I know you guys might be into true crime, but a little side note, anybody?
If your child has
Hold
used
on.
Roblox,
Fair
you
use
might be
reaction
owed-
clip. Hold on. Like the video as you guys come in.
We have no idea. It could be that. It could be something specific in the jury instructions that the juror does not want to follow, because there are a lot of instructions in that 62-page packet.
A lot of instructions.
No idea. But to be clear, real quick, there are alternates, right? There are alternates. If something happens and this juror is an issue, or there's another juror that's an issue, or there's a juror gets sick or something like this, or has a conflict, they do have jurors on standby, right?
They do have jurors on standby. However, they're not in the deliberation room when the jury, and the main jury, that being the first 12 that were assigned to this particular jury. So the alternates were able to go home if there was ever a situation where an alternate needed to be called in to kind of be tagged out with one of the other jurors. And again, we haven't gotten there yet. So all the alternates are not in the main jury room at all. They're not even in the courthouse. They went back home. However, they gave jury staff members their contact information, which included their phone number. So if there is a situation that arises where an alternate needs to be called in, they're able to get a hold of them just by the court staff getting a hold of their contact information that they gave to them before they were eventually dismissed.
Now, the final note, or the final two notes, one was we want to go, home at 5 p.m. They were allowed to stay longer if they wanted to, go home. But we finally got a substantive note in terms of the actual charges. And talk to us about what that note was about. They had a very specific question regarding an actual charge.
Yeah, they had a very specified question, to your point, Jesse, and it had to do with what was on page 37 of the jury charge, and that was the jury instructions. And so the note read, referring to page 37, if a person wants, requests, or asks for controlled substances, has the individual distributed? And I think that was a pretty interesting note, given that one of the counts, especially one of the predicate acts, is drug distribution. And so I think maybe the jury was kind of confused, possibly on the language of the law that was written, or maybe they just wanted just some more clarification as it particularly pertained to drug distribution under count 1 under the RICO conspiracy. And so what ended up happening is that, yes, to your point, Jesse, the jury was dismissed at 5 p.m. today. They were able to go home for the end of the day, because I know a lot of people have been asking whether or not this jury has been sequestered. They are not sequestered. They are free to go home at the end of.
So they left yesterday at 5 p.m. That was yesterday. Fair use reaction clip.
The day, they're just not allowed to discuss the case. They're not allowed to watch any documentaries, movies. They cannot watch the sidebar episode. So if any jury is watching the sidebar episode, no, that cannot be a thing. But what ended up happening is, after the jury was dismissed, the court had come up with a suggestion to answer their question. And the initial suggestion by the court, so by the judge, was to refer to page 37, lines 1 through 3 of the jury charge. However, he said that both sides can kind of wait until tomorrow to give their proposed kind of note back to the jury. So what the government's response was, though, is that they were kind of concerned about that specific instruction, and they wanted this particular note back to the jury to go that yes. They wanted literally the words yes to be written in the note back, and they say yes, but also give that proposed instruction about referring back to page 37, specifically lines 1 through 3. However, obviously the defense was going to have issue to it, because if you're thinking about, a note going back and it's saying yes, this person is distributing, obviously that's not going to look too good for the defense. So the defense we're just like, okay, wait, let's have a little more time to kind of think things through, talk things out with, my colleagues, as well as confer with the government about things. And so what they're going to do, Jesse, is they're going to confer until about 6 p.m. today. Then they're going to probably write it in a form of like a letter to the judge or an email, that type of sort, give it back to the judge, and then they'll discuss it further bright and early tomorrow morning when court begins at 9 a.m.
And that's interesting. The drug distribution part of racketeering conspiracy, arguably maybe one of the stronger underlying predicate crimes to get to racketeering conspiracy. Let's talk about this, because I have to say, jury instructions are usually a snore. They're usually really, really boring in a case, particularly when you have a straightforward charge, let's say like a murder charge, right? These jury instructions, 62 pages, are so important. They are so specific. They are so complex. These are not easy to understand charges. So I think I wonder if it's going to take the jury some time just to go over them and understand what they're assigned to be doing, what the elements are.
Well, they're saying with the jury instructions, they had said that it could take a few days because they got to get jury instructions from the judge. They got to understand the jury instructions. And remember how I was saying about that other court case that the other attorney I was watching? It was several pages. It was 20 to 30 pages that the jurors had to read and understand. And then I guess there's some kind of, I don't know if there's like a little checklist or whatever, but there's a lot that they have to read and understand. And there's going to be times when they're going to come back and they're going to ask if certain things, just like they were saying in regards to the substances, there's certain times that they have to get clarifications on stuff too. And they want to be very careful on what's put in the transcripts, because then we know almost which way they're leaning. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Yeah, they had said no matter what, it's going to take a few days. Now, maybe a case that's 1 week, 2 week, maybe. This case has gone on for weeks. So if they do their job properly, and if they fully want to understand what's going on, we may not even get a decision today. Maybe, maybe not. We may get a decision tomorrow. Maybe, maybe not. It might go till Thursday, because there's already been 1 day of distraction where somebody allegedly doesn't want to follow jury instructions. That's a 1 day delay already. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
So I want to go over some of the jury instructions that were read aloud today in court, their application to the case. Again, really important because this is the law that the jury will use to guide them. Very dense. Not going to go through it all, but here are some highlights that I took out. So aside from the basic instructions on, role of the court and the jury, the burden of proof, beyond reasonable doubt, circumstantial evidence, first direct evidence, they got into the elements of the charges, and the government has to prove each of these beyond a reasonable doubt. So, first of all, when we talk about racketeering conspiracy, arguably the most complex charge, it says, quote, first, that in or about 2004 through in or about 2024, so 20 years, there was an agreement among 2 or more persons to conduct or participate in the affairs of an enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. Elizabeth, how do you think the prosecution did to try to prove, hey, everyone, Sean Combs, his assistants, his bodyguards, his inner circle, they all agreed to this? How do you think they did about that from what you heard in this case so far?
Yeah, well, I think that was the big thing, right, Jesse, is this whole alleged criminal enterprise. And according to the government and according to the allegations made by the government, that Sean Combs is at the head of this alleged criminal enterprise. So throughout this trial, what have we learned about the alleged co-conspirators, that being Christina Quorum, that being security guards like D-Rock and Fahim, but also what we've learned, too, is what the government calls his foot soldiers, and that being the assistants. The assistants kind of, in a way, doing Sean Combs' bidding, whether it is procuring drugs, whether it be a small amount for...
Are y'all surprised he called his assistant foot soldiers? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Small use, as the defense might say, or whether it be drug supplies that were also used in these freak-offs, because according to the government, drugs were an essential ingredient for these freak-offs, or hotel nights, wild debauchery nights, whatever you want to call them. And so I think in terms of just showing, I know a lot of us were kind of like, oh, more text messages, more text, more audio messages, all of that stuff, but really kind of hearing how the assistants would communicate not only with Sean Combs, but also, again, his alleged co-conspirator.
How do you still
Fair
have a
use
dark
reaction clip.
2025?
Fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in, like and subscribe, please. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
That being Christina Quorum, whether it's to get reimbursement for drugs or get reimbursement for personal supplies that the assistants would use to pay for with their own money, get reimbursement through the company and things of that sort. And so in terms of just count one, and that being the racketeering conspiracy, I think the government made a pretty strong case. Now, whether or not the jury agrees, that is kind of the question going forward now.
And that's just one element, right? So that was just one element. Was there an agreement, okay? The second element was that the racketeering enterprise or its activities would have affected, or in fact affected, interstate or foreign commerce. And on that point, it says interstate or foreign commerce simply means the movement of goods, services, money, and individuals between any 2 or more states, or between one state and the District of Columbia, or between a state and a U.S. territory or possession, or between the United States and a foreign country. All narcotics activity, even purely local narcotics activity, has an effect on interstate commerce. Now, Elizabeth, I guess that's all about transporting Jane and Cassie Ventura Fine for alleged sex trafficking and prostitution and drug offenses, right? That's the big theme there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was something that, again, I think a lot of people are like, okay, it's sex trafficking as counts 2 and 4, but it also kind of falls under RICO a little bit too, because, you know, in terms of just interstate or foreign commerce that was affected, according to the government, the defendant knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, or maintained the victim. The defendant knew or recklessly disregarded that force, or excuse me, threats of force, fraud, or coercion, or any of the combination of force, fraud, or coercion would be used to cause the victim to engage in commercial sex acts. And again, pointing back to interstate or foreign commerce. Because if you think about just going to one of the summary charts or one of the summary exhibits where you're seeing flight records where Jane or Cassie Ventura, back when Cassie was in a relationship with Sean Combs, Jane was in a relationship with Sean Combs. What you can see from those flight records is flights traveling either from Los Angeles to Miami or from Los Angeles to New York City or vice versa. Some even in instances traveling to Turks and Caicos, as Jane had recalled during her testimony. And so in terms of just interstate or foreign commerce, again, the government kind of pointing to that these fall under the elements of sex trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking under RICO or being sex trafficking to Cassie and sex trafficking to Jane.
And yeah, that's an important element as well as, and I think this is the one I want to explore with you too. So third is the defendant knowingly and willfully joined that agreement. And fourth is that the defendant knowingly and willfully agreed that he or another member of the conspiracy would commit 2 racketeering acts. This is what we talk about, the underlying predicate crimes, right? And that's where it lists out kidnapping, arson, bribery, tampering with a witness, victim, or informant, forced labor, sex trafficking, transportation and inducement to travel for purposes of prostitution and other illegal sexual activities, possession with intent to distribute, or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances. And there are theories for each one of these, like kidnapping or aiding and abetting kidnapping. By the way, there are detailed descriptions of each underlying crime too. There is so much for this jury to process. Again, I can't emphasize that enough. Massive undertaking for this jury, so much law to consider. Now, Elizabeth, out of those underlying crimes, okay, and they need to find that there was conspiracy to commit 2 of them, right? Which do you feel would be the easier to prove, which stood out to you from the prosecution's case, and which maybe you're like, I don't know? Because let me tell you, on the verdict form, they have to list out which ones were proven, which ones they were unanimously proven.
Yeah, well, I think the ones that stood out to me, I've already talked about drug distribution, I've already talked about kidnapping, but I'm just going to kind of add 2 more to that list too, and I'm going to talk about arson and bribery. So, for example, arson pertaining to what had happened in January of 2012, because I remember when the government was giving their closing argument, they listed out all the participants of what had happened with Kid Cudi's car in the Porsche, and that included D-Rock, who set up the meeting between Sean Combs and Kid Cudi after the fact. That included Rue, who allegedly went over there with Capricorn Clark and Sean Combs over to Kid Cudi's home. And so, the jury was able to see photos of Kid Cudi's burnt car. We've been able to see these photos too. They've released them, so everybody has been able to see them at this point. And so while there's this kind of lingering question on whether or not the defendant may have had involvement in this, according to the government, they say, of course, the defendant was behind this 100%. The government is sure that Sean Combs is behind this Molotov cocktail, whether or not he was the one who, now there's always been a kind of a conversation on whether or not he was the one who threw it, but according to the defense, there was partial, DNA that was found on the bottle. But according to just some of the other pieces of evidence that the government was able to show the jury, including, messages from Cassie Ventura, where she had alleged that Sean Combs was planning to blow up Kid Cudi's car, and it wouldn't be at his hands. He'd be out of the country when this was going on. And so, according to the government, the evidence suggested that Sean Combs had something to do with this Molotov cocktail that was lodged into Kid Cudi's car back in 2012. I think another interesting one too, Jesse, is bribery as one of the predicate acts that I might think could be easy-ish to prove, or that the government has already kind of proved it, and that has to deal with what had happened in Los Angeles, California in March of 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel over there, where Sean Combs had paid $100,000 for that surveillance tape. Now, while the defense says it was because of a PR standpoint, that Cassie and both Sean Combs didn't want to look bad or anything like that, it was nothing nefarious. It was nothing about preventing a witness from going to law enforcement or bringing this information to police or anything like that. They say it was all about PR, and they just don't want each other to look bad. But I think when you talk about just the text messages that accompanied what had happened around this time frame, where Christina Coram's messaging one of the assistants saying, oh, just say that they had a drunken night and try to get the tape, those types of things that she was sending to the assistants, I think it also kind of might have to go into possibly the conspiracy too, where there was this really kind of active measure to really make sure that they got a hold of this particular surveillance video by any means necessary.
You've highlighted them well. I think those are ones that the jury's going to be wrestling with. And obviously, as we talked about, they had a question about drug distribution. So that's one of the ones they might be considering. By the way, one of the things that I can't ignore, and I don't know if people are talking about it enough, is, if he's convicted, what's his sentence going to be, right? So one of the...
Please subscribe to the page. Please subscribe to the page. And please like the video. You guys, we have 21 likes. Can we please get the likes to 50? Please double tap the screen to hit the like. Can we get the likes to 50? Double tap the screen, please, to hit the like. We're at 21 likes. Can we get the likes up? And thank you. Can we get the likes up? And thank you. Let's continue fair use reaction clip.
things the jurors will be asked to decide, it's actually on the verdict form, is if they find Diddy guilty of racketeering, the other question they have to ask is, has the government also proven sex trafficking of Cassie and Jane was within the scope of the pattern of racketeering activity? And if so, there is a special sentencing factor. That's what it is. That means potentially more prison time. That is a larger range of prison time. So it's very significant, the Cassie and Jane alleged sex trafficking. So now let's talk about sex trafficking of Cassie and Jane. You mentioned it before about knowingly recruited and tied.
I was so tired of my kids.
Fair use reaction clip. Fair use reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in. Like the videos, you guys come in, and please subscribe. And thank you. I had to let that commercial go past.
Enticed, harbored, transported, provide, obtained, or maintained a person by any means. By the way, the judge actually said in the instructions, I instruct you to use the ordinary, everyday definitions of those terms. Recruit means to seek to enroll. Entice means to attract, induce, or lure. Harbor means to provide shelter. Place. Transport means to take or convey from one place to another. Provide means to furnish, supply, or make available. Obtain means to gain possession of or acquire. Maintain means to keep in an existing state or sport. Second, that the defendant knew or recklessly disregarded the fact that force, threats of force, fraud, or coercion, or any combination of such means would be used to cause the alleged victim to engage in a commercial sex act. And that's interesting, too. It defines a commercial sex act in the instructions as any sex act value is given to or received by any person. A thing of value need not involve a monetary exchange and need not have any financial component. The defendant need not be the person who receives from the sex act. Also note that it is not required that the alleged victim actually perform a commercial sex act as long as the government has proved that the defendant recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, or maintained the alleged victim for purposes of engaging in a commercial sex act. And that last part goes to the allegation that Combs beat Cassie at the Intercontinental Hotel hallway in 2016 as she was leaving a room with a male performer, but there wasn't a completed sex act. Or the government would be arguing that is still sex trafficking. And the third element, that the defendant's conduct was affecting interstate or foreign commerce. But Elizabeth, this is what I wanted to ask you. You know, the force component, that's easy to prove. That's easy to understand at least. Did he use violence to force them to, get them to do sex trafficking acts, right? Sex acts, freak-offs, wild king nights, those kind of things, hotel nights. What in the government's case stood out to you as a form of fraud or coercion to induce Cassie or Jane into sex trafficking? That's not so easily understood. Can you explain, in your opinion, from this case, what are they talking about with fraud or coercion with Cassie or Jane?
Yeah, well, I'll take the first one as it pertains to fraud first, only because, that to me was something that kind of puzzled in my head too a little bit, Jesse, until there were some arguments that happened outside the presence of the jury. I think this was even before Jane had testified, where the prosecution was like, we plan on proving sex trafficking by fraud. Why? Because they believed that, Diddy enticing Jane to come over to Miami or wherever it be in the hopes that the two would just hang out together, the two would just have a wholesome date night, the two would just be alone together without an escort being present or an entertainer being present, and Jane would fly over there. She would do that, and then what would happen? That an escort or an entertainer would end up coming after Sean Combs had promised that it would just be the two of them hanging out together, being on a date night, those types of things. Even in terms of fraud by, promising her trips and promising her gifts, all of that stuff is something that I think the government was really trying to prove. Now, whether or not that the jury actually kind of believes this argument in a way, I think that will also that's the question that also kind of remains in my head. But in terms of coercion, I think there were a lot of instances that were sprinkled out through witness testimony, especially through Cassie and through Jane, where, for example, Cassie and Jane had both testified that they had to do freak-offs or hotel nights while they both had urinary tract infections or UTIs. That these are things that kind of under the law are determined as coercion, just things that acts, again, while having UTIs, while on their menstrual cycle, those types of things might also fall under coercion. But again, Jesse, I think the jury will have to realize that too. Like, okay, they've heard a lot of instances as it pertains to Cassie with violence and things.
Be kind in the comments. This is what we do. I get my news, I get my information from the news. I also tell y'all what's going on. So it's not like I'm only getting information from, I get information from the news, and that's how we report. Go run your channel how you want to run your channel. Goodbye. Now you're timed out. See you in a few days. Peace out. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
That's right. But in terms of Jane, I don't think the force is necessary.
And I'm not a lawyer. I can explain good stuff, how I need to explain it. I sometimes will tell y'all what they're about to say before they even say it. And then I say, see, I told y'all. So I can do what I need to do on my page. You do you on your page.
Fairly all there, because they kind of point to one specific instance of physical assault, and that being what had happened on June 18th, June 19th of 2024, so just last year. But it'll be interesting to see what the jury has to say in terms of counts 2 and 4, that again being sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, as it pertains to
And this is another way where there won't be misinformation. We're getting it from the news. Real talk. That's important. Some people are reporting and they're reporting in the wrong way, or they're doing clickbait. We don't do clickbait over here. That's what the news is for. So we can differentiate what's being said. And then I'll tell y'all kind of street stuff of why and what and the distractions. Yeah. Yeah, we're not blowing smoke up people's behinds, and we're not falsifying stuff, and we're not trying to clickbait you and, oh, the defense did better than that attorney, or they did better. No, we talk facts over here and we go fast. A lot of people can't keep up, and that's cool. But we get millions of views over here every month. So we must be doing something right. So it is what it is. Fair use reaction clip.
Jane and Cassie Ventura fine. So it'll be interesting to see what they think about this too, because we may think one way, but the jury may think a completely different way.
Knock, knock. Hi there.
And it's kind of like a
Love to show you what a K-12.
It's like a reaction video as well. A lot of pages do it because you want to conversate and you want to react to what's being said. This is a huge case. Huge. Some people are doing transcripts. You can go over there if you want to listen to step by step. He sat down, he walked over, he hugged the judge. You know, I'm sorry, he talked to the judge. There was a sidebar. Go over there. If that's what thrills you. Over here, we like the information.
Now, you and I both know a lot of important witnesses testified under immunity. They were going to plead the fifth, right against self-incrimination, but they were granted protection from prosecution. Who stands out to you?
I think who stands out to me most is probably Brendan Paul, and I would say Vonna stand out to me most. And for just
so no one's really said that, but I get what you're saying in regards to humiliation. Remember how they had said that they worked for and they wanted to take them down a peg? Could that be? There's alleged bigger fish. If he don't want to give up the bigger fish, maybe. Yeah, I made a mistake and said hug the judge. I'm so silly today. Real talk, y'all. I'm ready to get out of here. I'm about to have some fun today. And here I am making this video because the other video got deleted. I had to come back. So I am late and I was supposed to already be there. But I'm here with y'all. Paris can already tell when I'm in rare form. I'm in rare form. Yeah, we don't blow smoke up in here. We do what we got to do. We give y'all the information. Yesterday was a really good show because we broke down what Diddy's day is like, and if he is alleged, found guilty, where he might be transported to. So yesterday was a lot of information. So a lot of times, please. Oh, you trying to call somebody boring? I know you lying because we give good information. See, that's the one thing. People can't really mess with me because I'm already confident in who I am. Somebody tried last week. See, I got to be careful because my mouth is something else. And I checked them real quick and they didn't say nothing else. I appreciate you saying this channel's cool. Yeah, we cool over here. If I really gave y'all my normal personality, y'all would be cracking up. But I kind of be serious because this is a serious case. Yeah, they say, girl, and you know what it is? They probably can't keep up. They probably can't keep up what's being talked about. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Completely different reasons. Now, we've heard a lot about Brendan Paul even prior to trial because of the Rodney Jones lawsuit and how he was named in that particular lawsuit as an alleged drug mule. He gets on the stand and he is adamant that he is not an alleged drug mule. He is nothing of that sort. He says, according to him, that he was kind of on the straight and narrow for the most part until that arrest had happened. He was a basketball player previously. He just wanted to do music. He had been working for Sean Combs to kind of, work his way up, those types of things. So he kind of stood out to me because, as we all remember, he was arrested at the airport over in Florida at the same time that Sean Combs' homes were being raided because he had, according to his testimony, he had a small amount of cocaine on his person that he was supposed to transfer into, I think, either the Gucci bag or one of the designer named bags that was supposed to go with Sean Combs before this trip, this family trip that they were all going on. And then he ends up getting caught with it. He's arrested, but he ended up having a really great lawyer, as he had said, while he had testified, and he was able to kind of work a deal out. And so that's all good. And so even in terms of Vonna's testimony, I think the jury might have a lot of questions in their mind about her and her credibility in a certain way, because there was this whole issue on whether or not this alleged balcony the incident happened, but more importantly, when the date of this alleged incident even occurred, because according to the defense, Sean Combs wasn't even in California on the date that Bonner had alleged that he had dangled her from a 17-story balcony over at Cassie's condo. And so I think these are just some questions that will be going through the jurors' minds while they're back there deliberating. Now, whether or not they may remember every single one of the immunized witnesses, that is a wait and see, because there were a little bit of them. I can name, George Kaplan, I can name David James, there was Brendan Paul, there was Fauna Bongolan, and so those are just some of the immunized witnesses that just come to my mind. I think all of their testimony was interesting, but definitely Brendan's and Fauna stood out to me the most.
Oh, yeah. I have to ask you about this.
My dad canceled his auto insurance.
Fair use reaction clip. All right, they saying Pete Davis got a new boo, and they got matching Rolexes. I'll have to do trending topics later. Chloe's talking about all the procedures she had done. And I don't know, the Kardashians are trying to trend over the wedding Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez just had. And remember how the mom changed her face? Now Chloe want to be open and honest about the procedure she had. Somebody had asked me why I do what I do and how I feel about them. Go back and look at how they disrespected different cultures. That's why. Catch that tea. But yeah, I'm just zooming through what's being talked about. Chloe wants to trend over her procedures. And each procedure, Tristan cheated on every one of them. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Oh, let me turn the volume up. Sorry.
Instructions. Diddy's voluntary Diddy's voluntary intoxication or drunkenness can be considered by the jury as a way to negate his intent to commit certain crimes. So racketeering conspiracy, attempt, kidnapping, bribery, forced labor. I mean, do you remember when that was discussed during the trial? Did Mark Agnifilo mention that in his closing argument? That feels significant because during the course of the trial, the defense was keen on talking about his substance abuse problems. But the idea that this, negates an element of the charges, did Agnifilo mention anything like this?
I feel like
Yeah, they saying that it was a slight fiasco. In regards to inviting so many famous people, I don't know if they really got paid. I wouldn't say that, but this is the biggest thing. If you're a celebrity and you have a partner that's not a celebrity, maybe the partner wanted to go to the event just to get out, have a vacation. Let's do something between me and you. You know what I'm saying? And this is the biggest thing. The K's and the J's went. Now, who watching some of them K's and J's kids while they off? And a lot of times the baby daddies ain't around. One of them brought their children. I'm general over here. One of them brought their children, which is cool, but they're utilizing the kids too for media attention, clicks, and views. But some of the famous people might have gone just to get out, get away, and take a vacation with their spouse. Certain events, famous people could not have their cameras. And allegedly, in regards to the Jeff Bezos and Lauren's wedding, it was supposed to be a different location. Allegedly, they had to change the location because of everything that was going on in the city. The city did not want him there. They didn't want him there at all. They felt that here you are spending your millions, you're distracting us on our day-to-day situations. And there was different protests. There was a lot that was going on. Lauren looked cute. Paris, I saw a video. Lauren's dress was pretty. It was general though. I saw a girl make a dress similar to Lauren's, and then she took a picture saying this is all she did. So there's a lot of people throwing shade, and maybe it's because when the billionaires, millionaires flaunt their billions, people get kind of trippy. They had said that he could spend $1 million a day and he still would not run out of money for over so many years, 50 or 60 years or something. He's that rich. But how she got him is how she got him. How she gonna keep him is how she gonna keep him. Many people talked about Lauren's face, how it kind of changed. Did her face change because of who she's hanging out with? We don't know. Did Lauren change her face because who she married? We don't know. But they said she was pretty well known back in the day, being like a reporter or something. But I did do some shorts. Go check the shorts out. It talks about her dating history, Lauren's, who she was dating, who she was married to, how much they spent on the wedding. But, I'm all for love over here. But I just don't think that they should have invited certain people. And I think it wouldn't have been. I think the K's and the J's literally wanted to trend over the bride. What Kylie wore, any picture you saw, the K's and the J's. So say, for instance, it'll be a picture of oh, this person, then the Kardashians, then this person, then the Kardashians. They wanted to be in the flow of every picture that was trending. And some people say, do people utilize the media to push their narrative? Possible. Yeah, it was interesting. They wanted to be a part of every picture, and it was like a media blast. And then it's like, 10 pictures, and there's only 2 pictures of the bride. So then they were being called out, right? So then the Kardashians wrote wrote a message to Lauren saying, "Oh, we enjoyed the wedding, blah, blah, blah." They only said that because they were called out. And then, why you gonna wear Balenci? I'm gonna just be general. One of them wore Balenci. What? So certain big events, she liked to wear Balenci. I've noticed that. Do you realize what Balenci alleged stood for? I think that's why some people don't fool with her. And guys are like, no, I can't even mess with that because you are promoting that. Yeah. Yeah. And then Katy Perry broke up with her man, right? Katy Perry broke up with her man. And then the K's and the J's is all up in his face. And somebody's taking pictures. And then that went out into the media that he hugged and did whatever. Mothers, teach your daughters different. Teach self-respect, self-love. Be good to your friends. You shouldn't be taking people's man. You shouldn't be taking your best friend's man. And then they always utilize Scott. Poor Scott. All the other baby fathers and took off, dated other people. So it is what it is. Okay, y'all. We're gonna listen to this. I'm gonna listen to this. But yeah, I was just looking at the media because I'll be trying to intertwine the Diddy stuff with hot topics or trending topics. If I see something, I'll be trying to tell y'all. But yeah, Lauren's wedding, maybe she shouldn't have invited who she invited, but that was her responsibility. And maybe they wanted to get close to her because they knew that they were going to try and trend over her or seek that for media attention, clicks, and views. Who knows? Lauren can be friends with whoever she want to be friends with, but you got to be careful sometimes. Because remember, this case, the Diddy case, they're not getting a lot of clicks and views, and people really aren't talking about them. So of course they needed something. They needed something to get their names back out there. Yeah, fair use reaction clip. Okay, let's continue.
I don't remember right off the top of my head whether or not he did, but I think there were points that they definitely, on the defensive side, were really trying to sprinkle in that might have either been a drunken night or a bad batch of drugs that really caused the reactions that maybe Sean Combs allegedly had on certain instances. I go back to the March 2016 incident where I think the defense was trying to kind of poke holes in terms of just what had happened that night, what had caused that particular violent encounter to really happen. And they, I think at points were trying to say it was, a bad night of drinking or is a bad batch of drugs. And I think it was interesting that the judge did read that particular instruction because I think on the government side, I think they were trying to point to different instances where Sean Combs may have just been completely not drunk or anything like that when violent episodes had occurred. And I think they were trying to say things like when it happened or what had happened on June 18th, June 19th of 2024, where they were kind of trying to drive the point that Sean Combs and Jane both had the same amount to drink. But however, we know what had happened at that particular instance. They both got into a physical altercation. Jane initially kind of slammed Sean Combs' head into a counter, and then Sean Combs reacted in a very, very violent manner where he was chasing Jane throughout her apartment. He kicked her, he dragged her, he caused physical injuries to her that only the jury could see from the exhibit photos and things of that sort. And so it's interesting whether or not the jury will really kind of take into account that particular instruction. Obviously, they should take into account all the instructions that the judge gave them, but that particular instruction kind of stood out to me because I wonder how much of the testimony do they remember, and do they think, okay, well, maybe is it possible that it was just drugs or alcohol or somebody under the influence that caused some of these instances to happen?
Like I said, a lot for this jury to consider, and why I am not surprised that they didn't come back with a verdict today. I could have guessed that. I would have put any money on that they wouldn't have come back with a verdict today. Do they come back with a verdict before the July 4th weekend? That's a more difficult question. We'll see. A lot of evidence, a lot of testimony, a lot of charges, a lot of elements, a lot of law. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much. Great seeing you.
Elizabeth is so good. She's detail-oriented. I like Elizabeth. She breaks it down. She's in the courtroom. I'm not, and I'm not going. Kenya Moore is kind of shading Cynthia and Peter. Kenya Moore says Peter Thomas was more interested in Real Housewives of Atlanta other than his wife. Peter liked the cameras. Some of those men like the cameras. I really think the Housewives men should have had their own show. I do. And it would have showed their day-to-day. I think that would have been interesting. Okay, if you guys did not know, allegedly Remy Ma gets into a verbal altercations with the daughter of the man that's no longer here. Let me read that again. Remy Ma gets into an altercation with the daughter of a man that's no longer here. Allegedly, her son is. She went to court to see her son. I got to be careful what I say. So go on to the neighborhood talk. There is a video of the daughter speaking, saying, "My father is no longer here," and allegedly Remy Ma has been. Some are saying she's been arrested. I can't confirm or deny she's been arrested, but it is showing that she's been in an altercation. I saw a video of someone saying she got arrested, but I can't confirm or deny she was arrested. Let me see if Hollywood Unlocked got it. But if you're going to court to see your son and then you have an altercation, that's not good. That's not good at all, because then it makes the judge think that y'all are violent. You know what I mean? So let me see. So yeah, I can't confirm or deny she got arrested, but I know she had an altercation. I saw the video. So you can't change what my eyes saw. So yeah, that might come out later. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Remember how I did that video in regards to, Remy Ma going to see her son in court, and she had her own situation. Remember how I did that video where the K's and the J's were talking about Bianca? Bianca don't bother nobody. I don't know why Kim likes to talk about Kanye wife. I kind of do. Kim likes to talk about Kanye wife. She know Bianca not going to respond to her. She know Bianca don't even be on media. Bianca don't even really care for media clicks and views. Bianca gets dressed by Kanye. Kim was saying last week, oh, she's tired of Bianca copying her outfits. Bianca be doing her own thing. Bianca gets dressed by Kanye. So then allegedly, Kim says she don't like her copying her, and she feel like she's stalking her. Bianca don't even pay no attention to people. She don't even be on media. You know what I'm saying? But then there's a picture that comes out in regards to Kim dress from like last year or 2 years ago. The mom is wearing the same dress as Kim. Now, is Chris trying to channel Kim? Is Chris trying to look like Kim? Because remember, back in the day, Kylie looked a lot like Kim. So it's kind of like, did Kim want Kylie to look like her? So that way people will say, well, Kim's what, how old? And Kylie's how old? And then they keep saying Kylie looks older. They just said that Kylie looks older. So I had told y'all, Bianca don't bother nobody. And Kim knows Bianca's not going to respond. So Kim likes to trend with Kanye and Bianca. Real talk. Kim loves to trend with Kanye and Bianca. And I could give y'all some tea, but I'm gonna be cool on that. But it is what it is. Kanye is with a new wife. Kim loves talking about Kanye, whether good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. That's probably why why aren't men wanting to date Kim or Chloe though? Why hasn't she moved on? Maybe men see that she continues to talk about Kanye and they don't want to be a part of it. But like I said, the mom can date and be in a relationship for 8 or 9 years. But those girls are expected to date. Those girls are expected to date. Real talk. Now, whether Kylie and Timothy was a real relationship or his contract is up, allegedly, some people liked Timothy and Kylie, some people did not. And I told it before, Timothy, you better wrap it up. Because remember, some of them, most of the sisters got interracial relationships, but then they love talking about the culture. Go back and look it up. The cake that Kylie gave Jordan, 1. Kylie wore a necklace that was interesting, 2. Kylie made her face a little bit larger, 3, and it was brown. How Chloe's outfit, one Halloween, how she had young girls connected to her, that didn't look good. The Balenci situation, not that great. And how they, certain things. So when people ask why, that's why. If I did a whole video of the concerns, y'all would get why. It's not okay to insult a culture. And maybe that's why Kanye thought he could insult different cultures, because they sometimes do. And then I don't like how they paint Chloe. But Chloe likes to allegedly take people's men. Allegedly. Yeah. And a lot of the fathers have issues or concerns. Some people say, did those men have concerns prior to, during, and now that they're in the media, you see the men's concerns, possibly. But yeah, the mom got a dress. The mom got a dress that Kim wore a year or two ago, and the mom is wearing it. So did the mom change her face for the wedding? Did the mom change her face for the wedding to look like one of the daughters? Possibly. And did Lauren change her face for Jeff? Or did Lauren change her face because who's she hanging out with? But here nor there. Okay, everybody. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. I updated y'all on some of the Diddy stuff. I did a little hot topics, trending topics. And yeah, them K's and the J's is something. They're seeking a lot of me, because you got to remember this Diddy stuff has been going on for a while, and that's a lot of what people have been talking about. People haven't been focusing on them. And it's something how Kanye will do a lot of stuff when their show is going on. Yeah. Yeah, I may come back. Yeah, I almost didn't come back, Paris. Hey, I was almost ready to go. But yeah, I might come back live later if something transpires, if something happens. I probably won't even be listening to stuff in the car today. I'm gonna just enjoy my day. But I know me, I'm gonna probably do it anyway. That way I be knowing what I'm talking about. But yeah, okay, I'm 30 minutes late. So copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Okay, everybody, gotta go. Have a great day. Be blessed. Thank you, Paris, for being here, supporting me. Thank you for your kind comments. Thanks for holding me down and having my back always. Bye, everyone. Be blessed.